The Galactic Naval Academy's lecture hall fell silent as Commander Vextor displayed the holographic schematic of the Krillian dreadnought. 200 cadets from 47 species studied the vessel's elegant lines, all except one. Lieutenant Jake Morrison raised his hand. Vextor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. In 30 cycles of teaching, interruptions during his weapons lecture were rare. Yes, human. Sir, why are your warships missing armor here? Jake pointed to the aft section near the engine housing. And here, along the dorsal spine. Those look like critical areas. The Krillian commander's mandibles clicked, a sound his translator rendered as a dismissive laugh. Young Morrison, these vessels have defended the Galactic Alliance for 3,000 years. I assure you, our engineers know what they're doing. I'm sure they do, sir. I'm just trying to understand the tactical reasoning. Vextor's confidence didn't waver. Simple mathematics, Lieutenant. Armor is heavy. Those sections you've identified are positioned away from primary threat vectors. In ship-to-ship combat, frontal and lateral plating bears 93% of all weapons fire. We optimize for efficiency. But sir, what about maneuvering casualties? Small craft attacks from unusual angles. Fighters are eliminated by point defense systems before they achieve such positioning. Vextor zoomed in on the weapon clusters. See. 37 automated turrets provide complete coverage. Jake nodded slowly but didn't look convinced. What's the redundancy on those systems, sir? Triple redundancy. Each system has backup power and processors. Vextor's tone carried a hint of annoyance. Perhaps we should continue the lesson. The human settled back, but his eyes kept returning to those unarmored sections. 3 months later, the Xinthian swarm arrived. They came from dark space, a species unknown to the Galactic Alliance's extensive databases. Their ships were crude, barely more than engines with weapons bolted on, but they came in thousands, like locusts blotting out the stars. The Third Fleet engaged them at the Helios Junction. Admiral Kartok commanded from the bridge of the Alliance flagship Luminous Justice, confident in his fleet's technological superiority. The battle began predictably. Alliance dreadnoughts unleashed devastating broadsides. Energy shields flickered and failed on Xinthian vessels. Dozens exploded in brilliant flashes. The automated turrets tracked and eliminated fighter craft with mechanical precision. Then the Xinthians adapted. Their fighters stopped attacking from the front. They scattered, coming from above, below, behind, angles the Alliance had deemed inefficient to defend heavily. They were willing to lose 3 ships for every successful attack run, and they had ships to spare. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the light cruiser Perseverance, his hands gripping the tactical console. Sir, they're targeting the aft sections and dorsal spines, exactly where the armor's thinnest. Captain Reynolds, a grizzled veteran from Mars, nodded grimly. I see it, Lieutenant. Helm, emergency maneuvers. Engineering, reroute all power to aft shields. The Perseverance survived the initial assault. 30 other Alliance ships didn't. The Xinthians had discovered what Jake had seen months ago: the Alliance had optimized their ships for the wars they'd been fighting, not the war they might face. When the automated turrets were overwhelmed by sheer numbers, those unarmored sections became death sentences. They're using kamikaze tactics on the Luminous Justice, the comm officer shouted. Jake watched in horror as a dozen Xinthian fighters, ignoring the frontal defenses, dove toward the flagship's exposed engine section. The point defense systems were already at capacity, tracking hundreds of targets. Captain, permission to break formation? Jake asked. Reynolds didn't hesitate. Do it. Show us what human pilots can do. The Perseverance was a newer ship, one that incorporated some human design philosophies, including manual override capabilities that most Alliance species considered primitive. Jake took control of the gunnery station, his fingers dancing across the console. Where the automated systems picked targets based on threat assessment algorithms, Jake thought like a predator. He ignored the fighters already being tracked and focused on the ones exploiting the gaps. His shots weren't as accurate as computer targeting, but they were unpredictable, catching Xinthian pilots off guard. "Morrison's bought us 10 seconds. Reynolds barked. "All ships, focus fire on the swarm approaching the flagship." It wasn't enough. The Luminous Justice took 3 kamikaze strikes to its aft section. Secondary explosions rippled through the unarmored spine. The flagship's lights flickered and died. The Third Fleet retreated in disarray. 2 weeks later, Jake stood before the Alliance War Council. Admiral Krtok was there, one arm in a regeneration cast, his pride more wounded than his body. "Lieutenant Morrison," Fleet Admiral ZH Kara began, "you've submitted a rather controversial report." "Yes, Admiral. With respect to Commander Vex Thor and our alliance partners, our naval architecture has a critical flaw. We've optimized for efficiency in the wars we've known, but war doesn't follow our optimization models. You're suggesting we redesign the entire fleet?" Krtok's voice dripped with skepticism. "No, sir. I'm suggesting we learn from 300 years of human naval history. We faced the same problem on Earth's oceans. We built perfect ships for the last war, then got surprised when the enemy didn't follow our rules." Jake activated his own hologram, a comparative analysis. "Humans don't optimize for efficiency. We plan for the worst-case scenario. We over-engineer. We add redundancy on top of redundancy. We armor everything, even when the math says we don't need to, because we know that in real combat, the enemy gets a vote." He zoomed in on a human destroyer design. "It's heavier. It's slower. On paper, it's inferior to equivalent alliance ships. But it doesn't have weak points that can be exploited. When automated systems fail, humans can still fight the ship manually. It's not elegant, but it survives." Vex Thor's mandibles clicked, but this time it wasn't dismissive. "Your species has only been in space for 3 centuries. Our vessels have defended the Alliance for 3 millennia. Yes, sir. And in that time, you've never faced an enemy like the Xinthians. We have. On Earth, we called them asymmetric threats. The enemy that doesn't fight the way you expect. Humans got very good at surviving those enemies, because we had no choice." ZH Kara's tentacles rippled, a sign of deep thought. "What do you propose, Lieutenant?" "Start with the fleet we have. Add armor to critical weak points. Install manual override systems. Cross-train crews in damage control, human-style damage control, where everyone fights to save the ship, not just waits for automated systems to fix the problem." "That's inefficient," Krtok protested. Jake met his eyes. "No, sir. The Luminous Justice burning in space was inefficient. This is survival." The silence stretched. Finally, ZH Kara spoke. "The Council will consider your recommendations." "Dismissed, Lieutenant." As Jake left, he heard Vex Thor's voice behind him, "Commander Morrison." Jake turned. "Sir. I'm just a lieutenant." "Not for much longer, I suspect." The Krillian's mandibles clicked in what Jake had learned to recognize as respect. "I was wrong, young human. Sometimes the student teaches the teacher. Your species' paranoia and over-engineering, perhaps it's not a flaw after all." Jake smiled. "Sir, on Earth, we have a saying, hope for the best, plan for the worst. We've had 10,000 years to learn that lesson. We're just sharing what we learned the hard way." 6 months later, the Xinthians returned. This time, they faced Alliance ships with reinforced armor, manual override capabilities, and crews trained in human damage control procedures. The battle was brutal, but the fleet held. And on every ship, in those previously unarmored sections, fresh plating bore a small inscription, "Morrison's lesson," because the enemy gets a vote. Humanity had joined the galactic community as the young upstarts, the primitive newcomers. But they'd brought something the ancient species had forgotten, the hard-won wisdom that survival doesn't come from optimization, but from preparing for the fight you don't expect. In the cold mathematics of space warfare, humans had added a new variable: stubborn, paranoid, over-engineered resilience. And the galaxy was safer for it.